All right, where are we at here? All right. How's everyone doing? I'm Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA Show. WTF are you talking about? So what I want to get into today is something I was watching last night on 2020. It's based on the new Jennifer Lopez movie, Hustlers. They did a special on these three girls that were hustling a lot of guys in New York, getting them intoxicated, drugging them, taking them to Scores Gentlemen's Club, ringing up outrageous charges, and then dropping them off basically in a hotel. So they ripped these guys off. Most likely it sounds like they were in cahoots with the club, even though the club claims they had nothing to do with it, which, whatever. Because these guys were getting drugged and going in there spending in the upwards of $50,000. They don't even remember doing it. I find it hard to believe that the club had no idea these girls were doing this. But nonetheless, what I'm going to call this podcast is basically learn how to protect yourself in nightclubs and gentlemen's clubs, and women as well. So what I'm going to go through here is something I go through in my Mastering Self-Confidence program. If you don't know what that is, I basically try to help men find the woman or women of their dreams, even if they've been through a bad breakup or divorce. But I also get into a lot of ways on how to protect yourself from a lot of bullshit out there. Very similar to my book, Wingman. I'm not here plugging either one of these. I could care less, whatever, but I'm just telling you that's give you some type of idea. But I grew up in the nightclub business. My father owned a go-go club originally, nightclub, restaurants, and then I ended up doing vending, I guess you could say, for clubs, restaurants, gentlemen's clubs, bars, lounges, whatever the hell you want to call them, for a majority of my life, up until I was like 40 years old, off and on, in between making films. So, I'm going to give you some pointers here. You may have heard them before, maybe you haven't. But after watching this Hustlers, basically the movie is based on what I was just explaining to you on 2020, these three girls who did this. And originally, I'm pretty sure they were all strippers or waitresses, and then they moved on to pulling cons and becoming thieves for the most part. And so, here we go. The one thing I want you to learn more than anything when going out is never, ever, ever give your credit card to anybody or your debit card. Now, if you're, again, I'm going to probably say this a few times, if you're a multimillionaire and you have the luxury of, or a billionaire, where if you go out and spend $1,000, $5,000, $10,000, or $100,000, that it doesn't faze you, God bless you. This really isn't for you necessarily, but I still think you got to be smart. Because I think what happens to a lot of wealthy men is they're the ones who get taken advantage the most that I've seen over the years, and they have to cover their ass, which I'll get into in a little bit. But say you're the average person out there and you're younger and you want to start partying and you're going to clubs, gentlemen's clubs, or even sometimes restaurant lounges, right? That could be in Vegas, or if you're on a vacation. Anything where basically you walk in and they want to start a tab. Now there's two things I would tell you is, another thing is, I never start a tab. Another con. And I know a lot of people are going to argue with me and say you're an asshole if you think I'm going to pay cash or pay every time that I pay for something. And I'm going to tell you that's the one thing you better do. That's how you control what you're spending in any atmosphere. You don't walk in anywhere in life and say, here's my credit card, and just start freely ordering things or allowing somebody else to basically do things on your card that you don't even know sometimes that they're doing. It's not like buying clothing, hypothetically. If you buy 5 shirts at, let's say, $20 a piece, you know it's going to be X amount of dollars. What happens in bars, nightclubs, and restaurants is they con you out of a lot of things, especially with drinks, and the markups are astronomical. Also, a lot of times when you come into a club and say, here's my credit card, let's just use that for example, or gentlemen's club. You come in with a group of people, most likely 2, 3, maybe by yourself, but most likely that's not the case. 4 or 5 people, you start meeting other women, you start ordering drinks. Before you know it, you're ordering shots. And before you know it, people in that group start ordering things as well that you don't even know if they're ordering or not. The bartenders, waitresses could be patting the fuck out of that, that total amount all night. You would not even know it. And then sometimes even when you go to pay your tab, you're like, what's this outrageous tab? Well, you didn't realize that guy ordered a bottle of champagne. There's a service charge because you wanted, I don't know, VIP, or there's a service charge for this, or You went into a back room, there's this charge, you were in there X amount of time. I'm just using, for example, if you're in a gentleman's club now, there's all these different things going on. So you have to be aware that here's the number one thing you have to realize, and this is really for young people, but I think middle-aged guys get caught up in this as well because they weren't a part of this lifestyle sometimes. So after they get a divorce, they start hanging out in, could be clubs or gentlemen's clubs or whatever the case may be. They get taken advantage of. And where they're going to get taken advantage of, like I was just telling you, is them openly giving their credit card. Now forget the credit card. Say you just walk in now, you want to start a tab. Another huge loser. Because again, you're basically saying open reign. Whatever I want, my friends want, whatever's happening, they're charging you. Now, some places could be on the up and up, and I'm not going to deny that. But a lot of places are not. You are a target. You are a mark. Their job is to suck as much cash out of your wallet, okay? And also take and ring up, actually, as much money as they can on your credit card or credit cards, okay? That's their job. That's all they're concerned about. That's how the team is trained. The waitresses, most likely, bartenders, even the barbacks, managers, bouncers, valet. I'd hate to say that. How they survive is by big spenders a lot of times. You wonder how a lot of nightclubs or some of these places are, you're like, holy shit, what's the rent here, $100,000 a month? Or how do they run an operation like this? How they run it is by ripping a lot of people off. And that doesn't mean I'm saying that they're not giving you a good time. Okay, I don't want to sit here and rip on all bars, nightclubs, gentlemen's clubs a lot of times. But what I am saying is their job is basically to suck you dry or get as much money out of you as they can. So now, if you've ever been to Canada, what I love about Canada is they never touch your credit card, and you don't have to allow them to touch your credit card. I actually have never been in a gentleman's club in Canada, though, so I don't know, maybe they work it differently there. But every bar I've been to, every restaurant, every lounge, anything you purchase, even retail, anything, they usually do not grab your card. They have machines there. So you have access to your card at all times. You put it in, you either enter your zip code, or you may enter your PIN number, and then you pull it out, right? They don't have your card. Now, here's something else as well. When you give somebody access to your card, say in a club for long periods of time, guess what can happen very easily? They can easily gather all your information. Now, I know a lot of times you're thinking, well, if I give my card anyways for them to ring it up, they have my information as well. That's not always the case. A lot of times if you get a receipt, you'll see there's only the last 4 digits. But if they want to rip you off and get your numbers, your CCID number, your expiration and shit, yeah, that could be the case. But I'm just telling you, the longer someone has your card, and here's the thing, you may give your card to a bartender, hypothetically, and they're holding it. Somebody else in the club can have access to that. And I had that actually happen in LA once. I paid at this really well-known sushi place. They took it. They claimed somebody else, not the restaurant. And I'm like, well, how did they have access to it? Because all I did was pay a check and they had my for 5 minutes. But it wasn't under their name, the restaurant, somebody else. But I knew just by the string of what happened that it happened there. So those are 2 things I really want you to remember when you go anywhere. Pay per round or pay per drink. I would recommend more than anything, and a lot of people are like, no, don't carry cash around. Depending on how much money you're going to spend that night, you may want to just do a cash type situation. Just be aware that you're not flashing cash everywhere. Because if you're like you order around the drinks, that's $80. All right, here's $100. You're done. It's not where you got to keep handing over your credit card. That's where they kind of make it feel like it's an inconvenience for you and them. Bullshit. Don't fall for that shit. I think a lot of times when you go to a club, I talk about this, or a bar or whatever, you automatically tip your bartender pretty high end first if you have cash, and then they'll cater to you for the rest of the night. But I would not, again, give them any access to my credit cards or anything. I don't care how aggravating it is to keep paying per round or, whatever I'm paying for. Here's the other thing you got to remember a lot of times. The other job of them is for them to basically get you intoxicated so you spend more or you don't realize how much you spent when you're leaving. Okay, that's kind of a no-brainer. So be very aware of that. And this goes for a lot of things. I'm not even going to throw a lot of different cities under the bus here, but a lot of clubs in the old days, even now, if you had the money, you obviously could get drugs. You could get a lot of different things. Let's just say whatever you want. You can even gamble possibly at certain locations. You can have sex in certain locations. It goes on and on and on. And there's different ways of how they can charge you for that. And it's not obviously going to be saying that, but there are. And the thing is, again, you may be with friends who get a little out of line. It may not even be you. And before you know it, they start doing things and putting something on a tab or a credit card. So here's the other thing. Say you go with a group of buddies. I've been doing this my whole life. And usually they're like, all right, so whoever, put the credit card up, we'll all split it at the end. Worst mistake ever. Worst mistake. And that, I'm not digging on your friends now. If you have all wealthy friends, God bless you, money means nothing. But for the most part, whoever puts the credit card in usually gets burned a lot of times. Usually what happens is, if, say it's me, I give my credit card, I'm with 5 guys, everyone's partying, there may be women there, again, could be a nightclub, even could be a restaurant with food, it could be whatever the case may be. If it's like more of a bar atmosphere is what I'm saying, not where you're sitting at a restaurant. You give your credit card, drinks start coming out, they start buying rounds, then they start buying for rounds for a lot of people they may or may not know, then they start buying, they may again start getting, who knows, table dances if you're at a gentleman's club, back to the back room, say you're at a club, you want to go in VIP, bottle service, all this type of shit. Then the end of the night comes in the tabs, huge, which they usually are. Say it could be 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, 50, I don't know. Most of the time, your friends are going to freak out. Some can't afford it. Some can. Some are going to dip on you. They're going to try to score, and if they get a girl or something, they may leave. A couple guys may be in a group, get hungry, want to leave. And guess who's stuck with the tab? I am, right? Or there's going to be a dispute. So all of a sudden, this check comes, and now we're arguing over who spent what. Like, dude, I only ordered, I had 2 drinks and 2 shots. I only spent, $60. Why is our tab? I'm not going to chip in for a $5,000 tab. It happens all the time. I can't tell you how many times you go back when you're younger, partying and everything, and also somebody, say, pays the tab. So say I'm not even looking at it, or I'm half in the bag. The tab's thousands. Could be whatever the case may be, and I'm drunk. They already grabbed me. So they're like, don't worry about the tip. We already added the 18% or whatever. So you just sign it. All you got to really do sometimes is sign it. And you're gone. You're not even paying attention. If you're older, you don't even have glasses on, most likely. Or it's dark. You leave. The next day you get home. You look at your receipts, or your credit card or debit card people may get a hold of you and go, did you spend X amount of money? You're like, holy shit. Now, where do you stand? What are you going to say? Most likely you're going to say, I didn't spend. How did I spend all this money? You did, or somebody did. You have no one to blame but yourself again. Just a heads up. You're the asshole, I'm going to tell you right now. Regardless if you did it just independently or you did it with friends. And it's really hard to dispute these things, especially if you're on video, which they talked about in 2020, that a lot of these guys were getting drugged or intoxicated and being brought in these places. And it's hard to dispute something in that nature. And if you're married, and this happens to a lot of dudes, and you may not even be there to score women, you may just be on doing something for business with clients or whatever the case may be. You may just be out for a birthday party and they get a hold of your shit, your card. You're embarrassed, right? So most people end up paying these huge tabs, and they really got taken advantage of on every level. So let me get some water here. So here's the deal, and I talk about this in my Mastering Self-Confidence program. If you're a dude who really wants to start hanging out in nightclubs and you can't afford to hang out the way you want to, and this goes for gentlemen's clubs as well, or wherever you want to hang out, it could be a nice restaurant. What you need to learn to do is become friends with just one person, usually, that works there. Okay? It could be a valet parker, could be a bouncer, manager, waitress, barback, cook, chef. List goes on and on and on. The trick to saving a lot of money and hanging out in those spots, again, this is for the average Joe, like I was saying, that can't afford to party all the time or can't afford VIP bottle service, is you become friends with somebody, and in turn, because here's the deal. I talk about this, say you sell real estate, say you're a mortgage broker, say you're a mechanic, say you're, I don't know, you change tires, say you are a landscaper. Whatever the case may be, somebody in that club needs what you do, and you want something from them. And I'm not always saying in life you got to go out and use people to get what you want. But in this case, this is, I'm telling you, probably the best way for you to go is you meeting somebody again. I would start maybe at a valet parker, or especially the bouncers, because a lot of times you got to realize too, the bouncers are the ones that protect the girls, and the bouncers are also the guys that control the girls regarding a lot of bachelor parties, escorting services, hotel parties, after-hour parties, a lot of things, because women need protection, especially when they're outside the club. The ones that do that a lot of time are the bouncers or the guys inside the club. So you want to be, like I was just telling you, become friends with these fucking guys. It's not a big deal. Tit for tat again. You'll meet one of them. Then if they like you or you're cool with them, they'll introduce you to another one. And before you know it, you become a regular kind of. Not a regular or you're a mark. See, there's a big difference between an asshole that comes to a club and pisses all his money away, and a mark, or somebody that comes in that's a regular that they're friendly with, that they don't want to take advantage of. Okay? And here's another trick too. If you know anything about marketing, if you can start tying, friendships into people that market nightclubs, gentlemen's clubs, bars, restaurants, or whatever, they have the best access to everything because they're helping that company market their business. So who do they love? They love that person, right? You become friends with that person. I have a lot of friends even now that do marketing for clubs, that even hang in the clubs. So if I want access, basically to a lot of places, I just literally hit them up on Facebook, or I just text them personally and say, hey, I don't do it often. I haven't done it in years. But I see them out there, and I go there, and I get VIP service, and I usually don't pay for my drinks. I get treated like a king. They buy me drinks. They put me in a VIP area a lot of times. Of course, I'll tip my waitresses. I do spend some money. I don't have to spend a lot. A lot of times I'll leave a goal to be like, Rich, just park here when you pull up. Or if I don't know the valet, go do this. He'll take care of you. Go to the door, say who this, or I'll meet you in the front. I've been doing that most of my life just because I knew so many people in the industry because we did vending for them. A lot of times I'll even go through the back door like Goodfellas. And I'm not only talking local places, I'm talking really like pretty well-known nightclubs in Florida and Chicago and other places as well, especially gentlemen's clubs. So, what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, you want to become friends with them. And because, here's the other thing too. If you have a lot of money getting the piss away, God bless you. But if you don't, that one night that you're going to go out and spend for friends, bachelor party, whatever the case may be, birthday, I don't know what you're out there spending. At the end of that night, say you blow 5, 10 grand, that money is gone forever. And I understand you want a really good night sometimes, once in a while. But blowing money in clubs, for the most part, is so much of a waste of money, I can't even explain it to you. You could have taken that money, because I know a lot of guys that party all the time and they can't even afford to fix their car half the time. Or they can't afford to buy a piece of real estate, but they're in the clubs again, pissing their money away. If you got to go to a nightclub, or you got to go to a gentleman's club and blow 10 grand to be around women that most likely you're not even going to end up with unless you have to pay for them, is ridiculous. I could promise you that. Because it's just, I'm not saying it's a loser move if you like doing that to a certain degree and you have the money, but if you do not have the money to do those things, you are just wasting all your money. It is never coming back to you. If anything, most of the time you piss some money away at a nightclub, gentleman's club, or whatever, it leads to more problems. Usually a lot of times it involves drugs, prostitution, all that shit. People don't talk about all the embarrassing things that happen to them in their life, but I promise you most likely you're going to be embarrassed. You could even say you blow 10 grand at a club or whatever, you get the girls. Say you do pull them out of a gentleman's club, bar, whatever, you go back. Again, you most likely are a mark. They want you to buy drugs for them. Or they want you, or they'll rob you. You'll get intoxicated, steal your shit. There's tons of, there's so many stories, it'll never end. But if you allow yourself to be in that position, it's all on you. You're the asshole. For you to be around beautiful women, you don't always have to go to clubs or gentlemen's clubs and piss tons of money away. And I get sometimes it's fun. I get it, right? Even people that work and do all different things for shows, and then everybody's at a convention center at a show, and then afterwards you want to take clients to a strip club. I get it, because that's kind of an environment that a lot of them aren't around. You take them there, they have fun. A lot of them are married, and most likely everybody, for the most part, goes home, or basically goes back to their hotel, works the next day, and whatever. I'm talking about the ones that are going to pull all-nighters with a group of people that they don't know, especially, again, strippers or women that work clubs, whose job it is to basically steal your bread or take as much money from you as they can. You've got to protect yourself going out. I'll keep saying that, because the only one that's going to protect you is you. Now, one thing I used to do was, when I was younger, which sounds crazy now, is I would go to nightclubs by myself. I was almost programmed that way, and I look at myself and go, Jesus, were you crazy? I had a fake ID at a very young age, but when I moved to Florida, officially at 18, I didn't have a ton of friends here. I knew some people from going to summer school here, but nobody I knew had IDs. But being in my father's nightclub, I just was programmed to go to nightclubs if I was lonely. So I'd work out in the gym and then go work out, and then go to clubs. And a lot of bars I'd go to were bars that my father had equipment in, and that included, I'd literally go to gentlemen's clubs because I knew the waitresses there, or I knew the bartender, I knew the manager, and they were super cool. As I used to go to these nightclubs for many years by myself, and even in my 20s, sometimes I would just go have drinks, I started studying everybody else's behavior. And it's amazing that most people don't even, and I wasn't a big drinker, and I wasn't into drugs at all, because I was always driving, and I couldn't lose my license, then I couldn't collect money. So my father was, he's really up my ass with that one. I couldn't, I'd only have one drink, maybe two. But I think a lot of men don't realize how gullible they are. And they're not only gullible when they go out to these type of places, but they're almost gullible with their own friends. And they get taken advantage of. I'm here to tell you, a lot of your friends that you go out with when you're younger, especially if you're the one who has money, or maybe the one that's cool or that's generous, you're going to be fucked over a lot of times. And you don't realize that when you're younger. A lot of guys are going to party with you to, sometimes manipulate you to spend money, or you may even end up in fights too. A bunch of different things. Just realize that, again, it's on you. You have to be responsible for yourself. And I've seen them even who's driving, they take advantage of the one like, you shouldn't be driving, all of you, but they'll convince somebody to drive home. They'll convince somebody to use their credit card. All these different types of things. Please protect yourself when you're out. I mean, the reason I do this podcast for the most part, or I wrote my books or my Mastering Self-Confidence program, is I want to help guys and women as well. I just want to help people not get burned. But I think a lot of people almost think that it's almost somebody's right to burn them. And I'm not saying just friends. I'm saying, like, if you go to a place and you're like, oh my God, I want to do VIP. It's going to cost me this. I'm going to get bottle service. I'll pay $500 a bottle because we're celebrating his or her birthday. I know I'm going to spend this money. You don't have to do that shit. You don't have to always spend the amount of money that you're spending to have a good time. There's a lot of ways around that, okay? And if you are going to get smashed, where you're in a position where you don't know what you're doing, you are setting yourself up to be a fucking failure. Okay, I'm just letting you know that. And I've done even podcasts where, what is your end game? You've got to learn when you're going out. One is, how much money am I going to spend? And how much money can I afford? Right? Number two is, how smashed am I really going to get? Right? Number three, am I going to drive? Am I not going to drive? Number four, what's the end result? Where do I really plan on ending up? I mean, if you think you're going into a strip club and you think you're going to pull them, most likely that's never going to happen. All they're looking at you as a mark. Now, if you're wealthy, extremely wealthy, and you want to go in, you want to make the women a mark, where you kind of want to get them basically on your payroll, where they become, I don't want to say an escort necessarily, or a baby daddy, or whatever the hell you want to call those girls. That's a whole different thing, and I'm not talking about that in this podcast, which I have a ton of information if you wanted to do that. legally, but I'm not going to get into that. Read Wingman, I get into that in my book. But you have to have an end game. If you do not have an end, don't figure shit out in the middle of the night when you're half in the bag or you're stoned or you're starting to do drugs. That is not the time to start figuring things out, and that's when people think they're figuring shit out. That's the last place. You want to have everything pre-planned before you go out. All right? All right, what else do I have regarding this? Yeah, and if you really do, again, want to start dating strippers, I'm not going to get into this. I've done it before on my podcast. Or call girls or whatever, escorts, whatever you want to call them. It's a dangerous game. But one thing now, I think more than ever, and I talked about this with my girlfriend Rhea on the podcast, is I think a lot of women strippers, let's jump back into a gentleman's club, that's self-promotion. What they want to do is be around, I think, for the most part, just my opinion, they want wealthy men to spend money on them. That's why they're there. And that doesn't even mean they like the men. They want wealthy men to spend a lot of money in the club or get tagged where they buy them a lot of things or set them up financially. And what was I going to say regarding that? Oh, I also think a lot more than ever, strippers, a lot of them want to get into porn. So it's kind of a flip back and forth where women in porn become very popular and then end up going into stripping, and they have a name for themselves and they're on the marquee, and a lot of guys will come and see them and spend money, or vice versa. They get into stripping to get into porn. But porn, for the most part, not easy to make a lot of money, and they usually get tore up and spit out. I'd hate to say that about a lot of those women. But, yeah. So you got to realize that everybody has an agenda, and a lot of times it's to use one another. And obviously the one thing that everybody, a lot of men want from women is sex, or they want a companion, or a lot of women want money or drugs a lot of times. You just have to realize. And I'm not saying every woman in a strip club is like that. I used to know girls that were college girls that were actually very educated, that went on. Some are mothers, some are great people, but a lot of them are bad news. So, and a lot of dudes that go to strip clubs, I'm not saying they're bad dudes, because I know tons, thousands of men that hung in strip clubs that were some of the coolest guys I ever met. I do think a lot of men just go there for the eye candy. Same with nightclubs. A lot of guys go to nightclubs. They're not always interested in picking women up. I'm just telling you. So they're just there to have a good time with their friends, listen to music, maybe dance, that type of thing. So, and I'm going to wrap this up with one thing. And what was happening in that show, or the movie Hustlers, what was happening I saw in 2020, which is the oldest trick of the book, women were marking men that were wealthy going in areas or bars where guys would hang out. I think this was near the stock market, so the girls knew that guys would come in there and they would profile them and see what type of watch they wore, what type of shoes they wore, what type of outfits they were wearing, what type of wallet they have, if they have a black Amex. And then they would start hitting on them, pretending to be businesswomen. One, I think, said she was in marketing. If you're a dude, be very aware. And especially if you travel, you have to be very aware if a woman is hitting on you. And even if you're a great-looking dude. Because a lot of times, there is an agenda. You never think it's going to happen to you. You never think you're going to get robbed. You never think you're going to get drugged. You never think something bad is going to happen to you. And it happens. So just be very aware. And again, that doesn't mean you're sitting at a bar and you start up a conversation with a girl and you're just talking to her. Or if you're at a restaurant or somewhere and someone's talking, or the waitress starts talking to you and you spark a conversation. I'm talking about sometimes when things are too good to be true. And that also goes for if you're at a gentleman's club and say you kind of look wealthy or whatever, and a girl says, hey, I'll meet you later. Don't think that you're not going to, they may go meet you somewhere, or two girls may go meet you, and then before you know it, you get hit on the back of the head with a pipe, and a bouncer's over you taking all your shit. Don't think that shit doesn't happen. It happens all the time, especially in a lot of areas, a lot of bad areas, I should say. Don't think you're going to go back to the club and be like, oh yeah, this girl set me up, and then the girl's going to be like, what are you talking about? Or they may string you into a hotel room, and you go into the room, and before you know it, there's a guy there with a gun grabbing all your shit. All these type of things. So please protect yourself, all right? And I'm going to wrap it up there. Where are we at here? Oh, we're at 29 minutes, Jesus. Hopefully you learned some stuff here. I don't want to go on and on and on, but man, guys, don't get taken advantage of. It's amazing if you become friends with people in nightclubs or gentlemen's clubs. A lot of them are still good people, but you will realize the ins and outs. And it kind of goes from, how do I say this? If you're an unknown, you're basically a huge target and a mark. But when you become a known, you almost get protected. You still feel bad for the people that are going in there pissing all this money away or being taken advantage of. But again, it's on their own dime. They're making their own decisions. But please, don't make stupid decisions. All right? Especially if you're going to get inside of that world, that lifestyle. All right. If you get a chance, just check out my website, richcelenza.com. I got a bunch of different stuff on there, and I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I've been doing a lot of YouTube stuff, so if you get a chance, go over there and try to subscribe. More or less fitness stuff and restaurants and smoothie places and places I go to all over North America, and unique places like that. So whatever, it could be coffee shops, gyms, and things in that nature. But yeah, please protect yourself. All right, don't be taken advantage of. I could go on a ton of different lists. This was mainly geared towards the credit card thing, not being taken advantage of, or setting yourself up to get ripped off. And even if you have a lot of money, do not piss it away on stupid shit, please. All right, I'll wrap it up there. Take care and safe travels.